easy. You got to do it easy when there's a promotion. You have to.
We are Group A, so we are Group A.
Group A. You'll never sing that.
Amazing. For the first time in Ramble history, Marcus wasn't the one to set that off.
No, it's me.
You were going to go in clean, and Luke,
I had a few days off. I just fancied it.
You ran into it.
Do you know what? It just felt right. It just felt right.
No, I think I went
I thought
a bit.
they're the bus wankers. It just felt right.
I just, in the spirit of Lee Carsley, I thought, after all my good work, I think it's time that I blooded in some new young blood.
No, I think in the spirit, in the spirit
now
of Lee
I'll
Carsley,
finally sing.
In the spirit of Lee Carsley, you did 4 or 5 different press conferences, not deciding whether you were going to do it easy or not, and then eventually it wasn't easy.
Don't have a go at Lee. He's just gained England promotion.
He has.
First ever England manager that's won a promotion, I think.
That'd be a lovely bit of trivia.
I'm
in
pretty sure
20 years' time, in a pub quiz.
Oh yeah.
They'll be asking that question.
That's assuming that we don't get relegated again.
Yeah, that's true.
Big assumptions on the Football Ramble today, everybody.
We just can't wait for the next Nations League.
We can't.
Yeah.
The only sad thing is, of course, that England don't get those extra Nations League games in March.
Yeah,
which would have been nice to partake.
Nice for Thomas. Nice for Tommy T.
It would have been nice for Tommy Tooks. But there we are. England 5, Ireland 0. A tale of two halves, Vish.
Yes. And a broadly quite boring first half.
Yes.
And then all the goals all of a sudden in the second, which then seemed to make the whole exercise moot because they went down to 10. Ireland went down to 10 men.
That was the turning point.
And then England just rushed to their goal for a good 20 minutes, and that was it.
It got to the point where I think everyone was looking around going, who hasn't scored for England yet? You haven't scored?
Yeah.
Right, get the Saints lad involved, Luke.
Well, it would be a very, very tough ask, wouldn't it, to criticise a young defensive player scoring his first goal for England from a lovely header.
Yeah.
But I'll give it a try.
I was going to say.
Am I joking? I couldn't believe that Jared Bowen had never scored for England. He feels like the one who's been there the longest of all of those guys who scored their first goal. It's his 14th cap, I think. And he's made a positive impact for England in the past, so I guess you just automatically assume that he might have got
Gordon
one.
was another one. I mean, he has missed one or two at the game.
There's definitely been occasions where Gordon should have scored and hasn't.
Against Dublin, had a chance, and Greece and so on in the first game.
Dublin?
In Dublin, when they played Ireland.
Would have been a mismatch against Dublin only.
Well, it was a mismatch against Ireland. It
was.
Although they might think that was harsh, because the turning point, Vish is right. I mean, I feel the first half, do we want to talk much about that? I mean, it was boring, it was pedestrian.
We've got a whole show to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like in terms of...
pulsating 0-0. Why don't we pour over it?
Well, first half was my favourite half of football so far this season.
Yeah,
I'm sure you agree.
really tactically intriguing.
That's what the Athletic is saying. Here's the underlying numbers of that first half and why it was actually really good.
Yeah.
5,000 words.
It did feel like there was more to take out of the first half because of the nature of the second half in terms of, it felt like England were running down a few dead ends.
Yeah.
Madueke had some joy on the right. And I suppose, if you were to, drill down into him, he's someone who is very exciting, but I feel like we're seeing him develop game after game.
I know what you mean, yeah.
He still feels really... Aspects of his game feel quite raw. I think he's quite selfish in the way that a wide player needs to be, but I think he can always release the ball a bit sooner than he does.
Yes.
But yeah, that in itself was interesting because, Curtis Jones has the game against Greece and it's all quite exciting. And then he comes up against a different proposition here where, the dice are a bit more loaded against him in terms of there's less room to run through in the middle. Mm-hmm. You've got Bellingham and Kane in front of you now, so you've got to play a bit differently. So in that regard, the first half was not interesting. That's too strong. But certainly, if you're analysing the game and things where England need to improve, that was, that's probably the 45 minutes to do it. Having said that, I did like the ruthlessness of that second half barrage because it was like all the players were frustrated by the first half and thought, right, I'm getting mine now. They sniffed blood. No, them are right.
I heard some of the things that what the away fans have been saying about us, right?
But even when you're the better team at home, I don't actually mind in principle the idea that you are feeling out the opposition and working out what the assignment actually is.
Because you say Spain did that to England in the Euros.
They absolutely did. That's exactly what I was thinking about. That's exactly what sprung to mind. Because you never know what the assignment's actually going to be. You get the team sheet, you understand that they played in a certain way in the past and the manager likes to do this, that and the other and the certain players like to do whatever. But I do think there's an element at top level football, even if it's just the first 10, 15 minutes, you are working out what's going on. And if you get a goal in that time, or you have a foray forward, or you get a counter attack and you score, that's obviously a nice bonus.
Yeah.
So in actual fact, I don't mind in principle England going into any game at half time at 0-0. And do you remember when we first started doing the Ramble?
San Marino?
Yeah, there was a situation when we first started doing the Ramble where England were 0-0 at half time against San Marino.
Andorra.
Andorra, was it Andorra?
Away in Spain, yeah.
It was Andorra. And the fans were going crazy.
Yes.
And the reason they were going
that.
crazy partly was because they had travelled there and they were pissed off anyway because it was a bit of a low ebb for the England team at that point because of the disappointment. But even then we were saying, and that pushes my theory to the absolute limit. Of course it does, because it's Andorra, for God's sake. But I think the principle is pretty sound.
Yeah.
You get out there, you find out what's going on, you don't give anything away, and you accelerate through the second half.
Yeah. No, the idea of saying we don't give anything away against Andorra, but I take your point.
I just said the Andorra thing tests that to the limit. That's a very exceptional case.
It does, yeah. But it's not a ridiculous thing to say. But look, it was 0 at half time. Although some say that the scoreline may have changed had Ireland been given a penalty. There was a couple of incidents,
Yes.
of course. What did you make of them, Vish?
I thought the Mark Gahey one was a penalty.
I thought Gay was like. I think Walker. I don't think.
Well, it was more of a penalty because he does kick the ball, but then they were almost. I know they happen right after each other, but you can almost treat them as independent events because when he kicks the ball, he pushes it into the attacker's path, and then the attacker tumbles over because of Gay falling on top of him. Walker, I didn't necessarily think so. That little.
I thought they were both penalties.
Did you?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I definitely thought the Gay one was 100%. I mean, you watch it back from the other angle when they're coming towards the camera. He's got out of his shirt for ages. I've got handfuls of his shirt for ages.
Yeah,
That's a foul.
I think Gay was lucky. Walker, I think it was just the way he sort of goes down.
Walker was clumsy, but I still think he impeded the striker.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Well, let's be honest. England got away with a 5-0 win then.
Yeah. Well, it's just
Of course, it's a change. I understand.
It changes things around.
And also, as well, if Ireland go 1-0 up, I mean, they will have used the template. The manager certainly would have used the template of Iceland pre-Euros when they won 1-0 at Wembley. And it would have changed it. But the fact is, it wasn't given, and England were, if we're honest, a little bit fortunate. And I think with England, with not their best 11, obviously some crucial players missing, but still obviously enough quality to beat Ireland, obviously enough quality to win the group. I think we might have seen a little bit of nervousness and a little bit of angst creep in because we saw Bellingham get booked and he was mouthing off and so on, and he seemed frustrated.
He's always mouthing off.
He did, although
absolutely fair. He basically acts like he's the world king, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But he's always doing that.
he did thank Carsley for giving him a smile back.
Did he?
When playing for his country, which is kind of a dig at Southgate, but perhaps we'll look at that.
Is that just so that Carsley doesn't smile very much?
Yeah, maybe.
Which he doesn't.
He has to do the things that other people don't do. Whether that's running, scoring, and smiling.
He reaches parts that other beers can't reach. Is that what you're saying?
I think that must be it.
Yeah.
Well, the penalties weren't given ultimately, and Ireland perhaps would feel aggrieved by that, and I think we understand that that's a fair point of view.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, as you were about to say or allude to, these are the decisions that games hinge on, and I think you never know what's going to happen if those decisions go the other way. Bearing in mind that if you look at the situation, we started out this show today talking about England being promoted out of the group. I suppose, given that it's head-to-head and that was settled already, it doesn't really matter how many goals England scored, but it
wasn't a 5-0 game up until the
It wasn't a 5-0 game, and also you're talking about the first goal not being scored until the 53rd minute after someone's been sent off.
Yeah, penalty.
So you never know if they were going to get it done. So the games do hinge on these types of events and these kind of incidents. So I mean, yeah.
Well, indeed. So, obviously, it exploded in the second half. And someone who's been criticised a fair bit recently, wearing an English shirt, is Harry Kane. But he provided an unbelievable pass to Jude Bellingham, who obviously... I wanted Bellingham to take it first time, because if he smashes that first time and it's in, it is one of the great goals of this UEFA Nations League campaign.
But it was a great turn in itself anyway.
It was.
I don't mean to be disrespectful to Liam Scales, who's a good pro, and I felt bad for him getting sent off. He didn't want to let his country down, I understand that. But that was a turn of... I am several levels as a player above you. And
I am world king.
Yeah, it was kind of like when you play.
You're merely a subject.
Yeah, when you play Saturday football and you know straight away as a guy on the other team is brilliant, and you're like, I've got nothing to do. I can't do anything with this.
Yeah.
And he didn't even complain or anything like that.
No,
so he kind of knew it as well. So I understand what you mean. If he had rifled that in first time, it would have been a beauty.
It would have been.
But I still quite
pass
like
from Kane. It's a shame Kane doesn't get assists for that. He's happy that he got a goal instead.
Yeah.
I think he prefers it that way.
I think he
does a nice through ball and he gets to take the penalty. penalty.
Yeah, I'm enjoying Kane's penalty technique. He's been that. He's changed it for a couple of years. With Bayern, we saw him like against Arsenal, for example, in the Champions League, where he does that sort of slightly stuttered run, which I still think is unfair on the goalkeeper. But them's the laws.
So he's gone from someone who's clearly done a almost Johnny Wilkinson type practice. This is my routine. I do it the same every time, and if I do it properly, it's not going to be saved. To a kind of let's see what the goalkeeper does.
Well, I think he may well. I mean, I don't know.
2 years too late, thanks, mate.
Yeah, well, I was about to say
do it against France.
Maybe that's one of the reasons why he kind of slightly mixed it up. I don't know. I mean, perhaps he did one of these stutters before the World Cup. I can't remember it, but there we are. Kane scored from a penalty, as he tends to do, because England usually have a penalty voucher when Kane is in the side.
And just to follow up on some of the chat you guys had on Friday about Kane and him talking about players pulling out the squad and stuff, it was really interesting to hear you guys chat about it. My take was that if Harry Kane did have the attitude of potential like a Phil Foden, we might be better off, and he might be better off.
100%. I totally agree.
Which is what we mentioned about one of the previous international breaks when he wasn't playing for Bayern, but he was very keen to join up with England. And we said at the time, just have a little rest, Harry. But what do you think then? I mean, even after this game, Kane was particularly sparkling, but he did okay. And obviously that first goal comes really from him making that kind of pass that he is one of a very few number of players of being capable of doing that. Are you sold on Kane not starting for England? Because a lot of people think his time has come to an end. Now, with Tuchel coming in, who knows Kane very well, I think it would be extraordinary to think that Tuchel, who is given a short-term contract, well, 18 months if you want to call that short term, his remit is win the World Cup. I'd be astonished if he thought Harry Kane wouldn't be a part of that. But a lot of people are saying, no, it's time for maybe Watkins to start. What do you think after this Nations League campaign?
So I thought it was... I think we've discussed this before on the show quite recently, but it felt like the decision to take Kane out of the starting 11, however difficult that may be, was already made during the Euros. Yeah. Obviously because he came in with an injury, but it's been done, so it doesn't feel as jarring if it happens again so soon after that major tournament. I do think he's obviously lost some of his legs. I do think that his dropping deep, which he's very good at. Yeah. You know, he was posting De Bruyne numbers in his last couple of seasons in the Premier League. Let's not forget that. Yeah. And that through ball was a great example of, I suppose, of his craft from deep. But what I would say is, given the way that certain players are coming through into this England side, even the players that have debuted under Carsley alone, he basically now drops back into quite a congested area of the pitch, and we become unstuck in certain ways. The thing I'll say about Tuchel, and you're right, he obviously rates Harry Kane very highly. He has worked with him before, and he will start under Tuchel. There's no doubt about that, and I'm okay with that. The thing I'd like Tuchel to do is almost take him to one side and be like, right, you know as well as I do that you've only got so many years left at this level, and you need to be smarter about how you play on the pitch, and you basically you have to stay in the final third. You are of no use to anyone dropping back, because ultimately, whether it's with Gordon or Madueke, England have runners out wide, and they need a focal point. They've consistently needed a focal point, and the reason that Kane is able to play those passes, for example, the pass he played last night against Ireland, is because Bellingham's breaking from deep. And he almost needs to understand that he now has to be that focal point.
I would go...
more so than ever.
I would go... That's an interesting take. I would go slightly different direction. I would say that you can potentially even say to Kane, we don't know what the draw for the 2026 World Cup's going to be yet. Yeah, perhaps England get a great group, or they even get a group of 5 instead of 6, where they don't play the qualifiers till later next year, right? That's how it works, isn't it? Yeah. So they could have.
So it'd be friendlies in March. If they are,
I just wouldn't pick him. I would just speak to him first. I would say,
you're dropping him for those.
But it's not. But it's not a dropping, is it?
Yeah, you're resting him.
It's almost like you're almost saying to him, if it is friendlies, you're saying, because obviously they know each other. So you speak to him and you say, I'm not learning anything about you. Yeah. I know you want to tie up your caps and tie up your goals.
What's the goal? He's after 100 goals.
Of course he is, and I will help you do that, but I've also got a job to do myself. Yeah. And I think we are going to benefit from you having a bit more time off. So in these non-crucial games, I might occasionally not Pick cute.
But the only problem is Thomas Tuchel struggles sometimes with being straight talking.
Yeah, well, we're going to come on to that. We're going to come on to that. We're going to come on to that tomorrow, aren't we?
We are.
But I totally agree with Luke. I do think they need to be smarter about this. And I suppose like part of the point I was trying to make was that Tuchel basically needs to look after Harry Kane, and that's a way of looking after him. The only problem I can see arising from that is because, you know, even just given the media coverage that Carsley had, Tuchel has such a clear remit to go in and win that World Cup that he knows he's going to be judged on results. So he has to pick his strongest, his results-getting team for even friendlies. He doesn't want to be in a situation where, I don't know, say England win one, draw one and lose one. And it's like, well, you know, they've only won one game in 3. And like, obviously he can ignore that noise and he's actually probably quite good at that. But suddenly the conversation around the England team sours a bit and, you know, players are a bit on edge. So those are the things he also has to be perceptive of, because it's such a, you know, he's basically a mercenary, for want of a better word. He's been brought in to do a very specific job that, you know, has only been done before once in England's history.
Well, good point. So we will talk more about Tuchel and England and the handover from Carsley and all that kind of stuff on tomorrow's show. We've got a Tuesday treat for you. But back to this game. You mentioned Jarrod Bowen scoring from a lovely free kick routine.
Lovely routine.
That was enjoyable, wasn't it?
That was enjoyable, and also really, I found it impressive that they just did it cold. Like it was his first touch of the ball.
I think Ireland gave England so much space. I mean, you know, Hal Grimson, the Ireland manager, he couldn't believe, like he was fuming with the drop off, wasn't he? He said, "What on earth was that?" Like I
think that happens when you are, particularly when you're a team who's not as good and you're away from home. And you retreat into yourselves, particularly when you're down to 10 men, the mindset probably just becomes, right, we need to make this stodgy. And if you look at why the goal was actually scored, it's a great routine, I totally agree, and amazing for Bowen to get his first England goal, because I think he's actually been provided, as I said earlier, quite a lot of positive moments when he's played for England. But the reason that goal is scored, a large part of the reason that goal is scored is because Caoimhín Kelleher in the Ireland goal, he can't save it.
No.
I mean, he doesn't even dive. By the time he's seen it, it's gone in, because there's so many Irish players in front of him stodging up the box and leaving so much space on the edge.
Which shows you again that those Ireland players, it quite oddly, well, I say oddly, I mean, when you're down to 10 men, I mean, it's so soul destroying. I mean, for the away fans, that must have been such a shy evening, quite frankly, when that happens. Perhaps they feel aggrieved not getting potential penalties in the first half. But when all's said and done, I think you have to show more. Like again, I'm really going on what their manager said.
He couldn't
believe the lack of everything.
I just can't believe. I know I'm not going to do this forever because this is boring. But just to make it clear that I have got some solidarity with Ireland fans about this, I cannot believe VAR doesn't give that Mark Gahey penalty.
Yeah, well, fine.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. What's the fucking point of it?
Yeah, but that doesn't. Fine.
So they should be aggrieved. That's what I'm saying. So they should be aggrieved.
So you think the defenders should just drop off then? That's what I mean.
It's a protest. We're going to lose 5-0.
Yeah, I like it.
And we're going to have our day and have our moment this time. We're going to protest the press conference afterwards.
Yeah.
So you know, sometimes they there's a certain minute where they applaud. There was a 5-minute period where Ireland were like, between the 53rd and 58th minute, we're not going to try.
No, that's right, exactly. We're going to storm the VAR room.
And I think this morning,
players should storm the VAR room.
Well,
I've said it.
When they the words
as if
of
they
the
need any more encouragement after what happened last week.
I was about to say,
storm the VAR room.
You know that scene in
Churchill's VAR room.
You know that scene in The Sopranos where AJ and his mates break into the swimming pool and pull the trophies out? Should be that.
Well, I think that from what you're saying, Luke, I think this morning when the Ireland team coaching staff and even the fans wake up this morning, they'll feel vindicated in what they did and what they did at Wembley. Absolutely. Well, it was a lovely goal from Bowen. Before that, Conor Gallagher and Anthony Gordon got their first goals for England. I was pleased for Gordon, took it well. And I think for a player like Bowen as well, I think it's a little bit of a monkey off the back because it's that first goal, you know, because if people, I don't think many people chat when Gordon plays and think, well, when's he going to score his first goal? But just as a competitor, that may be something. So it's only a positive, really. But I was pleased for Gallagher to get his goal. I think Gallagher's done okay, actually, against Greece. We didn't really mention him in that performance. And Gallagher, I think, is a handy player for England. I think he should be in England squads. And I think that a lot of people have a bit of pub chat about Gallagher in the same kind of way, although a different feeling when everyone got on Harry Maguire's back. Now, Harry Maguire is not a sort of world-beating defender, and he's not a starter for England. But at that time, when everyone was talking about him like he was a complete donkey, I was like, no, he's not that bad. I think Harry Maguire's a solid defender.
The chat about Gallagher to me has been far more reminiscent of the chat that used to be about Owen Hargreaves.
Okay, yeah. Although Owen Hargreaves, it was more
similar position though.
Different.
People who don't know much about football don't really work out what they do.
Yeah, but Hargreaves was more, he was played out of position. But I just think with Gallagher, I think he is a good player. And actually, we saw the position he played for Palace, the position he played at Chelsea, some of the stuff he's been asked to do for England. They're very different roles.
He's very actually. I would say if you're going to go down that route of chat, I would totally agree that he's actually a lot more versatile than people give him credit for. I saw him at PSG a week before last, and he was basically asked to do a role off the left for Atletico.
Yeah.
To combat the pace and guile of PSG's right hand side, which is obviously quite dangerous. And I thought he acquitted himself really well. Yeah. And it was a completely thankless role in Simeone's team that night, and he was all over the place. I thought, and although they spent a lot of time in the game behind and struggled in big patches, I thought he was very, very game.
Yeah, and if England are looking for a player next to Rice in the midfield, whether that is Bellingham or seems unlikely because he seems to be preferred in number 10, but we'll see what Tuchel does. He's not Angel Gomez, who's going to play nice little passes and do all that kind of stuff, or even Curtis Jones. He's not that type of player. So if you ask him to do that role, his maybe shortcomings in that are going to be seen. And so people think, oh, he's a limited player. And so it's like, well, hang on, he'll do every other role in the midfield, but maybe that's not the one for him.
You need people like that. Didier Deschamps didn't do too bad. Do you know what I mean? People used to call him the water carrier.
They did.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Isn't the thing like, with Conor Gallagher, it's not so much he's the water carrier, but he's like running with like a tray of glasses of water, and it's like, slow down.
He's like one of those guys at Oktoberfest with all the big beers. And
but he's running. Yeah. I think I think that's the thing that makes Gallagher, probably discredits Gallagher a bit, because there was stages at Chelsea where they were trying to build up with the ball, and he just insisted on playing in fifth gear, and it was like, fuck down.
I'm not saying he's the finished article. You're absolutely right.
But he's just refined that now. Because when he was at Palace and he was grabbing the headlines rightly, they needed someone like that. Exactly. And he was perfect for that. He was basically their all-action midfielder. Kind of, it was a little bit Roy the Rover stuff, and then when you transplant that into a team that wants to play with more structure. It's like he's, like a cat indoors, just like running across everything.
And he'll learn at Atletico Madrid. I mean, So
I think when Simeone said, you know what, you're not going to touch the ball today. Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir.
I also
no goals from you, but a yellow card would be nice.
I would also say, I think a great sign. I was a massive fan of it. It was ridiculous. His Rabona.
That's one of my.
What are you doing?
I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I think that's one of my favourite moments that an England player has ever produced ever.
Describe it, people who didn't see it.
So Gallagher, this is after he scored. England are in control. They're heading for a very, very comfortable victory. The ball breaks him slightly sort of on the corner of the box. He got a chance to loft one and could even shoot.
He could shoot.
But that would probably be a bit ambitious. Or take a touch, maybe play it back to a covering sort of fullback or something, and he just Rabonas it like about 10 feet over the bar. And I was like,
it's a rugby conversion.
I loved it.
Simeone would have hooked him for that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's why he's doing it.
But then I don't know. After the Beckham documentary, Simeone clearly has quite a good sense of humour. Yeah, and I think even Simeone,
when the time's right,
when it suits him.
Can I just say the other, we haven't got to it yet, and I was just conscious of time. The other thing I really wanted to get to, which I think is really interesting, I'd love your guys' take on it, is playing Kyle Walker at centre-back.
Well, I think that was out of necessity. And also to give Tino Livramento a chance at right-back.
100%, yeah.
Because he moved Walker to the centre, didn't he, against Greece? And again, in a game like that, he may well have perhaps should have given a penalty away or been penalised for that. But in a game like that, I think I think injuries and this is out of necessity.
Is it though? Because he had Quansah in the squad, he had Harwood Bellis in the squad who he used off the bench. He could have played centre backs in their natural position, but he chose to play Walker in there. Now, perhaps he wanted a bit of experience alongside Livramento or whatever.
I think that's it.
Spot on, yeah.
But it's interesting because
Quansah was a late call as well.
I wonder if people are starting to think, and I don't necessarily think this, but people may be starting to think that Walker's next few years before retirement, if there are a few years, may be at centre back rather than.
Well, there could be that. There could be that as well.
But I just don't think he actually played that well. And it was surprising against what he was up against. I thought he got bullied a bit, and obviously the Smodic situation was we've already talked about. I just thought it was an experiment. It didn't really work that well in terms of the outcome. Obviously, England won 5-0, so the outcome is the outcome. But I just mean, if he's alongside Livramento for a bit of experience, fine, guiding him through things, maybe that's helpful. But I don't think he actually looked that good in that position, which is surprising against what he was up against.
I mean, obviously he's played in a back three for England
That's right.
for a long time, but again, a different role. And as a younger man as well. And obviously,
I just think
with every year that ticks by, when you get north of 31, 32, it does make a difference. So,
and I just also feel like if you're someone like Gerald Quansah, who, fine, he hasn't played that much this season, but had a pretty important season last season for Liverpool, was unlucky not to be in the England squad for the Euros, right?
Some might say.
And he's still yet to make his debut. I mean, it's like, well, when am I going to play then?
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose for Carsley, though, he thinks that Kyle Walker is much more experienced at centre-half for England. I mean, I get what you're saying.
When I say he's unlucky not to make the squad, I mean, he was in the squad and then he was cut.
Yeah, but he was a late call-up for this one, so obviously he wasn't in Carsley's plans hugely. And I think that's it. I think it was more to benefit Livramento, who I thought did okay.
All I'm saying is I'd prefer Quansah to have scored that goal than Harwood Bellis.
Well, you're a petty man. Coming up after this, we've got some wholesome Jose Mourinho content. Who would have thought? And also, Scotland got a win!
Not everybody knows that is your future son-in-law.
Yeah, it's not done and dusted yet. Listen, things can change very quickly in the Keane house call, let me tell you.
Really pleased with him.
Yeah,
really
and over the last few months, he's got a goal shot, even playing for Southampton, and it's nice for him.
Well, we're at the Football Ramble, everybody. Of course, Roy Keane on Taylor, Harwood, Bellis's goal for England against Ireland there. Good old Roy.
They are, just to check, they are engaged, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just
Keane's daughter, we should say.
Keane's the idea of Keane before he walks her down the aisle, just to Harwood Bellis, I'll see you out there.
Even though she's walking down the aisle, it's not done yet. Things can change.
People think you're a nice guy, but you're not a nice guy.
Thanks to friend of the Ramble, Swedish House Furniture, for sending us that.
It's always Swedish House Furniture. He's always one.
Lovely username, that.
It is, yeah. You can become a friend of the Ramble too by heading over to patreon.com/Football Ramble. You'll get access to the Discord where you can chat with us and other Ramble listeners and get ad-free episodes of the Ramble up front and on the continent. And a reminder that if you want to get in touch with your stories, questions for the mailbag, or in response to anything at all, then email us show@footballramble.com. That's show@footballramble.com. Right then, Scotland won, Croatia 0. This was Scotland's first win in 16 games since beating Cyprus last September. It was a needed victory, Vish, but they got it at Hampden Park.
They did. And if you were to go in blind for that second half, you'd be like, they are all over them. Well, this is a brilliant performance from Scotland. They were knocking the ball around really well.
They were all over them.
They were absolutely all over them. Because you wouldn't necessarily been able to tell that Croatia were down to 10 men because they were also counter-attacking every now and then. And but no, it was, the atmosphere looked amazing.
Yeah.
Ben Doak looks top class.
Yep.
I was trying to think, I should have probably asked producer Rory this before we came in here. I can't remember the last time Scotland had a player who could beat a man from a standing start.
Neil McCann.
Yes, great.
Neil McCann.
McFadden as well. Basically, someone who can create something out of nothing in those kind of areas and bring everyone else into play. And he was having a lovely old time against, Gvardiol of all people.
That's
so, it seemed a very encouraged game, despite the fact that obviously Croatia had a pretty rogue red card in the first half.
I mean, was it a red card, Luke Moore?
It was astonishing. This is an absolutely astonishing decision.
Because it was a second yellow, they can't VAR it. They need to change that rule.
I mean, let me elaborate on that.
All right.
It's not that they need to change the rule. They need to have referees who actually can invoke the laws properly.
Yeah.
I don't. It's one of those situations where you you look at it, and you don't even need to see it more than once. It's not like, oh, the referee was unsighted or at a different speed, it looks different. It's just a foul. It's fine. It's a foul. And the amount of times and the frustration from a Croatia point of view is the amount of times happens in the Premier League every week. You see a player on a yellow put a quite robust challenge in, and the whole crowd knows it's a yellow, but the referee doesn't give it as a yellow because he's already on a yellow, and there seems to be some unwritten rule about how you have to do a little bit more to get a second yellow. This referee seems to have done the opposite and thought, Suchic's on a yellow, the next time he even touches another player, he's going.
He needs to do less to get a yellow.
But from Scotland's point of view, the run they've been on is in my view, a false run. And the reason it's a slightly false run is because you take into all account the games since they've had a win, it's been a very, very tough Nations League group because they got promoted up there, and it's been a pretty tough European Championship group that they are in. And they didn't pick up a win; they got drawn 2 defeats in that. So that's partly why they've been on such a bad run.
And some tough friendlies as well.
Which were organised to
because of that
that tough Euros group.
Absolutely right to add that in as well. From Steve Clarke's point of view, he got a situation here where you'd rather be a lucky general than a good one because they've beaten a good set of opposition with some household name players because a referee's done them a massive favour, but they had to go out there and do it. And they banged on the door over and over again. As Vish rightly said, they knew they were going to get caught on the break, but it was almost like they said, right, we have to do it now. We're at home.
Yes.
We've got a decent sized crowd.
There's no point in getting a draw.
We've got to get out there and do it. And they managed to make it happen. Late on, fortunate goal, deflected, but they managed to get it happening.
Well, I think this is, and you've got to give them credit.
100%.
Obviously, Croatia down to 10 men, but it is that kind of, a draw's not really any good. It'll be the same old story. And if we get caught on the break and lose 1-0, in reality, it is not too dissimilar to a 0-0 draw. So they've got to go for it. I think, and that Scotland performance towards the end of the game certainly is what I think they were crying out for against Hungary in the Euros. But
I see what you mean.
And I understand different game and different environment, and Hungary had 11, and it's done and dusted now. But they've got it, and it's a huge monkey off their backs, of course. And as you say, Ben Doak caught the eye. I mean, incredible, really. He's got, 22 first-team appearances at club level. A few for Liverpool. He obviously went from Celtic to Liverpool and he'd been on loan to Middlesbrough. Had a bad injury when he was at Liverpool, I think. But my goodness. And now the chat is, people are just like, for crying out loud, like, play the kid. Whereas Clarke has been understandably saying, well, hang on, slow and steady here. Let's not put the weight of the nation on his shoulders. And it's one of those debates that pops up every now and then.
I don't think the nation. The thing is, I don't think the nation would be on his shoulders. I think.
Well, whatever it is, lack of match fitness, lack of match practice.
Do you mean the weight of the Nations League?
Yeah,
I do.
Is that heavier or lighter than the nation?
Well,
there's lots of different nations in it. Presumably, it's heavier.
There is, but you understand the debate and the it's a classic debate that about whether you should play a youngster or not. I think he gives them so much, and he's full of beans. And also, let's be honest, as you mentioned earlier there, Vish, I don't think they have a choice.
Yeah.
That's it. I think the choice is made.
If they
that
don't
man's
want to
playing really well. He looks really exciting. He's providing an attacking threat that you haven't seen for a while. I don't give a damn if he was 12. Like, get him in there.
Also, the context of the game is that they're playing against the team they're in direct competition with for relegation from the Nations League.
Yeah.
So if they care about dropping out of Group A, they need to go all guns blazing.
Well, as we spoke on Friday, was it, on the Ramble, that the pots are crucial when it comes to World Cup qualifying.
Pots are important.
Yeah, so it is a big game they've got against Poland.
I would also, on the Ben Doak thing, I would also say I was chatting to a Middlesbrough fan on the Ramble Patreon Discord, who said that he's been amazing this season so far. 3 assists in his last 2 games. He basically beats every fullback in the league, and the only reason he's not got better stats is because Middlesbrough have really struggled to finish chances. And he said he's probably already on the point where he's too good for the Championship. And with respect to Scotland, I think they've got some good players in there. I probably think they're a little bit better than maybe you do, but they haven't got a player like that.
No.
And the way that, and I think Vish is right to point out the profile of the fullback he's up against, who is has won trophies. He's a top level player.
Well, one might argue he's one of the best fullbacks in the world. Certainly in the conversation.
And I wonder whether even top fullbacks now just aren't used to defending as much against a proper old-fashioned winger who's going to hit the fucking byline every time.
Yeah.
Because I'm not taking anything away from Doak, but what he was doing he was kind of doing the same thing every time.
Yeah.
A couple of step overs on the outside.
Worked for Mark Overmars.
Exactly. And you know, Aaron Robben had a trick. You know what? Jared Bowen made his reputation at Hull from cutting inside over and over again. No one could stop him.
No, bloody, I mean, we can go all the way back to Sir Stanley Matthews. You know what I mean?
Everyone's got a trick.
You have a trick and you perfect it.
What's your trick?
This.
It's a pretty good trick.
Hey, if they're listening, I'm tricking them.
By which I mean, you've been doing it a long time. Same thing.
But that's it, though. You knew what Overmars was going to do. He was going to go down the line and he was going to be effective like that. And you knew what Robin was going to do, different types of wingers, but you get the picture. And I think if you're fast, you're always going to cause problems. Can you, though, control that? We've seen with one or two other players. To an extent, like Theo Walcott was criticising pacey, but
Dama Traore,
he's
had criticism for it,
or even someone like Dan James, you know. But but Doak is clearly got a little bit more, which is why Liverpool signed him. And had he not have had that injury, maybe when he gets back in there, he might see a few more minutes in a Liverpool shirt in seasons to come, which would be very interesting. So I think he's got to play. And of course, against Poland tonight, it will be Steve Clarke's 62nd game in charge of the Scotland team, which means only Craigie Brown, after tonight, will have managed more games for Scotland than him.
The late, great Craigie Brown.
The late, great Craigie Brown.
That's interesting, though. That's kind of, I kind of have an awareness that Steve Clarke's been there a long time. But that's kind of crept up, hasn't it?
Well, to put that in a British context, Southgate, 102 games for England. Yeah. And I think Bobby Robson was 95, and then the late Sexy Sven was 67. Right. So that's, you know, to give you a few more numbers there, as I say, in a British context. So he's been there a while, and I do think that the chat around Clarke and Scotland is quite similar in part to Southgate at England. Clarke saying, look, we're qualifying for tournaments, we've got a good group, we're growing, like stay with us kind of thing, and people are going, come on. We're now used to qualifying for tournaments.
Yeah, what's the next step?
Exactly.
Can you take us onto the next rung on the ladder?
And I think if they'd have gone through from the Euros group last, in the summer again, I think people go, you've done it. Okay, what have you got, kind of thing. And I think with Southgate, it was win that bloody trophy. It was elusive. So I think this win gives a bit of credit in the bank, of course, for Clarke. Let's see what they do against Poland tonight.
Well, I think that's the real test, isn't it? Yeah. Poland tonight. Like if you can basically, go all in a situation like that against Croatia, then you need to build on that momentum. And it's almost good that they have a game of this magnitude on a Monday night so soon after what they did against Croatia. You've got to build on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's stay with the British sides. Wales got a good point in Türkiye, all things considered. 0-0, of course. They're still second in Group B4 on 9 points. And when I say all things considered, I mean Türkiye were knocking on the door, and they even got a penalty in the 89th minute which they missed. So it has to go down as a good point for Wales. And also,
lucky generals again.
Yes, indeed, absolutely right. The Turkish are a better side, of course. When you got Hakan Çalhanoğlu in the centre of the pitch, who's just roaming around the pitch.
The greatest playmaker in the world,
according to himself. Yeah, he's an enjoyable. The thing is, but that's annoying because he's an enjoyable player,
and he was actually really good.
Yeah, exactly.
But people you're still thinking about the thing I said, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So don't overrate yourself if you can.
That feels like a very English thing to say, doesn't it? Oh, you are so good. I'm brilliant. Hold on.
That's not what he said, though.
We've got a track record.
No, it's not what he said. If he'd have agreed, yes, you're right.
Yeah, but we've got, in England, we'd have a track record, as Vish is right, of pulling people down. When Bentner used to say that, Bentner said something like, Bentner went on to...
But I think these two
examples
are fair.
Don't bring him into it, it makes it worse.
You are correct to say that is the national psyche. You are correct to say that. However...
Bellingham in the Euros, when he was celebrating the overhead kick by saying, who else? And everyone's like, it's a bit much. It's just called an overhead kick!
After we loved the Adidas advert and the build-up as well. Yeah.
I was a bit concerned about that.
You were, to be
But I would say, as I say...
Careful, son, that's what you said.
Indeed, yeah.
Behave yourself.
I think it is fair if a player who calls himself the best playmaker in the world does need to be brought down a peg or two.
I just think possibly translations issues. He could, because what Bentner actually said, I can't exactly remember the Çalhanoğlu quote, but what Bentner actually said was something like, I need to believe I'm the best player in the world when I get up in the morning to go out and do my thing. Yeah. And then I think some tabloid jumped on it and said, Bentner, I'm the best player in the world kind of thing, when he obviously wasn't.
Yes.
So there is a grey area in it.
So the quote was, I'm the best deep-lying playmaker right now. Rodri is second, Toni Kroos is third, and then Kimmich and Enzo Fernandez. Kimmich?
Well, Enzo Fernandez can't buy a game for Chelsea.
So what do you think of that, Luke?
I think I understand why he said it. I understand why he's saying it.
Okay.
I think if you are someone who's playing at the top level of football and you know how good you are, and perhaps you maybe think that you're not getting as much credit as you deserve because you play for this team or you're from this nationality or whatever, you don't get much attention. I can understand why he said it. I don't agree with it, but I understand why he said it.
I think that's
Also, when he said it at the time, it was about 9 months ago. Since then, Tony Cruz retired. Rodri balked. So,
although he did win a Ballon d'Or.
yeah, but he's not playing now, is he?
Yeah.
So technically, right now.
We can all agree it was kind of Çalhanoğlu to let Rodri have the Ballon d'Or.
Very kind.
And also, by the way, Enzo Fernandez is making that top 5. He's delighted.
He's like, hey, let the man have his say.
Do I get a trophy for that?
But yes, Wales.
Anyway, Wales, I mean, look, they were up against it.
Oh, Harry Wilson nearly scored a beauty.
Yeah.
Trademark Wilson off the post.
He's having a great time of it at the moment, Harry Wilson. I would have been very happy for him to score. It was unlucky that he didn't. I do think if they had got out of that with a 1-0, that would have been stripy jumper
It'd have
time.
been brilliant.
Yeah.
The Wrexham Rivaldo. he's on one at the moment.
Yeah, he's doing brilliantly.
Yeah, well...
But I would just say also, Wales are roughly... Because we talked about Scotland, where they are in their Nations League group. I mean, it's pretty fair to say I think Scotland are probably playing in the Nations League at a level above where they are because they deserve to be promoted into Group A, and that's fine. And that's kind of the beauty of the Nations League, actually.
Beauty.
But Wales are probably in the situation where they're at the level they should be at.
Yep.
And so it's a very competitive group. They'll do well to kind of seal the deal and not be relegated from it because they play Iceland for their last game. And if they lose to Iceland, they could be in a relegation playoff, but they could be in a promotion playoff. So I think...
Well, they could win the group if they beat Iceland and Turkey drop points against Montenegro.
Which isn't going to happen because Montenegro lost every game.
Right.
What I'm trying to say in a very convoluted way is if you take into account they're in a competitive Nations League group for their level and they've changed their manager who's trying to do things a bit differently and who's got his own way of thinking about things, I think actually if they stay in Group B, that's great. And that'll be the platform for them to move on to what they do next if Bellamy stays in situ, because I think obviously there comes a bit of an overhaul when you change a manager as well.
Yeah. And I think as well, that type of performance where you're playing against a better side who, as I
away
say,
from home as well.
Away from home, going at you, intimidating place, blah, 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 blah. I mean, let's be honest, most teams, in a game like this, most teams, I think, would be fairly content with a point and away to Turkey. So, yes, it's a little bit of a fortuitous point, I suppose. But even, I mean, the penalty some people might have thought was a bit harsh, but that's the kind of thing that it all builds nicely. It keeps the momentum going. Staying with Turkish things, if you will, Fenerbahce played a friendly against Zenit on Friday. And of course, Jose Mourinho, being Fenerbahce manager, is never far away from the headlines. But this was a nice one, though. He let a young fan sit in the dugout throughout the match, which was lovely. There's a video of it.
I saw the video
as well on YouTube.
It was quite a boring video.
Well,
just a kid sitting in a chair.
Right.
Yeah, I get the point.
Yeah, I'm not saying people should. I'm not saying people should watch the videos, and if they want to, it's there to prove that this happened. But
I think you're the voice of a nation. We believe you.
Yeah, it's got to be annoying for Mourinho though. You try and do like a nice thing covertly, and it's on the Fenerbahce official YouTube channel.
Yeah.
God.
I wonder
Can the man not just be altruistic in peace?
I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if Mourinho does a lot of altruistic things.
I bet he does.
And we don't hear about them. But at the same time, wouldn't be surprised if he's very keen for people to know about it.
Do you want to watch a 10-minute long video of about a 9-year-old boy sitting on the bench doing nothing in a football match?
I mean, watch it for 30 seconds like I did.
Just a little clip.
But I was talking to a child. Do you think if they went one down, was his fault?
Yeah, exactly.
He's in charge now.
Get back out there.
He gave the kid an assist, though, for...
Timmy Sherwood put a random person on the bench at Spurs, didn't he?
Yeah, gave him his gilet.
Was it Spurs or Villa? Might have been Villa. Everyone loved it.
Yeah.
We all thought he was a clown for doing it.
I think it was Spurs. It was his last game.
Was it really?
Yeah, and he gave it to he gave his gilet to a fan, I think, and he sat there and
that's nice.
Yeah.
Game's poor, isn't it, without Sherwood managing?
What are you saying that for?
I was just being
Why are
sarcastic.
you having a dig? Jim was having a dig at Tim Sherwood as well. He's Andy's mate.
That's Andy's problem. Yeah, you can't say that.
Can't say.
He doesn't know. We didn't say who it was.
We did. We did on the live show, though. Coming up after this, Cristiano Ronaldo has broken another record. Oh, good. Before we get to C-Ron, Denmark won, Spain 2. Why are we talking about this, everybody? Because Our charity bet builder came in, baby.
Whee!
Come on. With live score bet. Danny Olmo got an assist. Both teams scored. There were over 6.5 corners and Spain won. So that's £130 secured for Prostate Cancer UK. Our previous bet builder won us 50 quid back in October, bringing the total amount we've won for charity to £180. So much like Jose Mourinho, we want our altruistic...
Exactly. So far, 180 quid so far, we should be saying.
So far.
Because who knows what's next.
Indeed, yeah. So well done, Spain and Denmark, for sorting that out for us.
Yeah.
Good win
we
for Spain.
should probably say they didn't know about it and there was nothing to suggest that they were a part of it.
Oh, yes. Yeah, my
Which
words.
is why you phrased that. Yeah.
My
Thank
words
you,
there.
Denmark.
Yes. Well, thanks to Denmark and Spain for putting on a footballing
Do you know what I
feast,
would
which
just say?
which Prostate Cancer UK benefits.
I would say thanks to you, to Jim, to Andy and to Pete for calling it right.
Well, it was us ultimately.
Yeah, I expect Prostate Cancer to be on the phone first thing today.
Oh dear.
Danny
well,
Olmo played well, didn't he? He's a good player. There's a little bit of insight for you.
Yeah.
Decent.
You weren't convinced by the Euros, but this.
No, I just think what's interesting is that he's had I just think he's had a bit of an interesting career.
I know what you mean.
He's not the youngest player in the world, so it's not like he's come from nowhere. He's also, his real name is actually Danny Carvajal, which has obviously had to change because there's already a Danny Carvajal there who was a bell end.
Yeah, I was about to say,
you don't want to be associated with him.
yeah.
His real name is Daniel Olmo Carvajal.
Yeah.
So he's obviously adopted his middle name, presumably because Danny Carvajal's around. But I just like that his career because he's born in Spain, represents Spain, started out in the academy level with Espanyol and Barcelona, but has to find his way at Dinamo Zagreb, then goes to RB Leipzig. And
Zagreb is particularly interesting.
Eventually ends up at Barcelona at the age of 26, which I think is just a very interesting path, which I wonder whether it's contributed to how good he is as a player. Like lots of different inputs coming in. Dinamo Zagreb obviously famous for bringing through really good young players. So I'm pleased for him. I think he was absolutely brilliant against Denmark. And although they almost tried to torpedo their own win by literally giving a goal to Denmark towards the end.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just like, because Spain are Spain, as you say, Marcus, are the holders of two of the belts in the shape of the Nations League and the European Championships, and they go 2-0 up against Denmark. They play some lovely stuff, and then you see what happens with the Denmark goal. Those of you listening who haven't seen it, go and seek it out. It's just a bit of a defensive blunder. Keeper gets caught in possession. It ricochets into the goal, and you just think, yeah, that's why football's great, because even those teams can do that shit, can completely combust.
Totally, yeah.
But there wasn't enough time for Denmark to capitalise.
What would make a team, and I know you're just going to shout World Cup at me, but what would make a team, if in a boxing kind of sort of context, the undisputed heavyweight champions of the world? You've got to have your continental title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be undisputed, you've got to have your continental, you've got to have the World Cup.
And then obviously, not. I mean, I know you have. I don't believe South America has a sort of a Nations League.
I think the Americas does.
They do.
I think it includes all the teams, doesn't it?
Yeah,
we'd have to check that. But
no, not the South American side.
The US were definitely in the Nations League.
Yeah, so maybe. But the icing on the cake, as we always say, is the Confed Cup.
Oh, the
Confederations Cup. It's the best one to win.
And the Club World Cup coming up next summer.
No, but that's to do with club football.
Oh yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
You got to have, until Brazil win an FA Cup, are they truly a great footballing nation?
Thinking about it, did one of the South American exec committee want the FA Cup named after him to give England a bid for the World Cup?
That was the rumour. Was it Julio Grondona?
I think it was Nicolas Leos, wasn't it?
Oh, him. Yeah. They're a pair, they are.
Yeah.
I think Grondona might be dead now anyway. I don't know. But they never truly die.
Can I just say, those trivia fans out there, I haven't looked this up, but just thinking about it, I don't think South America can have a Nations League because their qualification is so long.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're doing that all the time, aren't they? They're doing that all the time.
Yeah, so I think you've got those ones.
You're saying Spain are the heavyweight champions of the world at the moment then?
Well, no, I think Argentina are, because they are the Copa America holders, are they not?
They're definitely the World Cup holders.
World Cup holders, and they won, as far as I'm aware, they won the last finalissima.
Yes. Oh, yes.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they beat Colombia in the Copa America final.
Yeah, so I suppose
It's got to be Argentina.
Yeah, they would very much argue that.
Yeah.
But as I say, the Confederations Cup is the one to win.
Yeah. Now Argentina are holders.
Much like,
I don't like it as a concept.
No, I do. Let's bin that off. It's a bit like the Super Cup in Europe. It's better to win that than the Champions League, because you've got to win.
Well, that's just one level above the Champions League.
And the Europa League, obviously, yeah. It's a great leveler.
Yeah, it is.
So there we are.
Well, by the way, before we move on from this,
right.
So you've got the Super Cup, which is the winner of the Champions League and the Europa League.
Yeah.
Well, do the Conference League not get to do a little playoff to get in there?
Nah.
They should have a little three-way tournament.
No, come on.
Oh, like a triple threat.
Yeah.
No, because it was always
King of the Ring.
Because it was
three-a-side game. So you have like a
Three
pitch,
goals.
3 goals, yeah.
Arsene, is that you?
I'd love that.
No,
Conference League.
3 goals, no offside.
Yeah, the Conference League champions and the Europa League champions are ganging up against the Champions League winners.
That'd be good.
That'd be fucking good.
Be a bit of Squid Game.
There's
And
loads of
then once they've seen them off, they have to
Yeah,
then
they have to
fight
fight each other.
There's loads of room in the calendar. Get it done.
Yeah.
Do 3 halves instead of 2 as well.
There's at least 3 weeks in the summer when there was nothing happening.
Yeah.
Do it on
Exactly.
Christmas Day.
But I just want to remind you, though, in the Super Cup, it was always, back in the day, the winner of the Champions League and the UEFA Cup, the Cup Winners' Cup, it was like, all right, well done, you've proved your point.
You don't get it,
No,
yeah.
you don't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
it. We give you free tickets, but that's it.
It's unfair because you're cup specialist now.
The Cup Winners'
You want a
Cup.
cup to get in, you want that
Yeah,
cup.
we're worried you'll clean up.
Yeah.
The Cup Winners' Cup is the coolest of the European
Yeah.
competitions.
Yeah.
Anyway,
For sure.
Now, we mentioned Rodri earlier, of course, in the context of Hassan Çalhanoğlu. Well, he's not on social media, but...
God, what a life.
what about...
I know, right?
God bless him.
Jealous.
Yeah, well, he did say this about how he's recovering after his ACL injury, of course, against Arsenal, and he's been saying what he's been doing and so on and so forth. And he said, when I watch a game and I want to look for data, instead of looking at social networks, I put directly into Google Rodri stats, and there I check my statistics. I like the fact that he brushes up on that. Maybe that's the key.
You know what happens if you type in Rodri stats into Google? You get all this stuff, look.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Broken down by club, by international, by under 21. It's actually very good.
Look, he is currently the best player on the planet, so that is what you should be doing, kids.
I've
So-
never done that before.
But he's saying that when I watch a game, so he's currently injured, he's watching other people play.
Yeah.
When he's watching a game and he fancies looking at his own statistics,
Yeah.
he just Googles them.
Still
so he's
not-
second screening his own stats while watching a completely different game.
Still number one.
Exactly.
What a man. What a man.
Another weekend where I haven't picked up another yellow card.
Oh dear. Right, tonight, everybody, as we said, Scotland go away to Poland. Obviously, Croatia host Portugal. Luxembourg host Northern Ireland, who beat Belarus a few days ago. And Northern Ireland can top Group C3 and earn promotion to League B if they draw with Luxembourg, which you'd fancy them doing at least.
Oh, they'll beat them. I think they'll beat them.
So it's been a decent campaign for Northern Ireland.
They'll be up. They'll be up. They'll be up in Group B.
They will be. They won't be facing England, though,
No.
because England have departed Group B onto greener pastures, you could say. But that would be quite something for Northern Ireland to get up to Group B. And this is why, again, to quote Luke Moore, that's the beauty of the Nations League.
I do think the Nations League suffers from criticism due to the. I think it's almost like a crypto criticism of the more. Just the busyness of the calendar. It's more of a comment on the amount of football being played than it is the Nations League itself.
A snobby Premier League attitude is what it is.
I just think if you I can't remember if you guys said it or someone on the radio said it after the Greece game in Greece last week. I think it might have been Five Live saying it, so forgive me if it was you guys. But the point was just being made that look at this.
Mate, I said it was a triumph for the Nations League.
The crowd is
Exactly.
up for it. Like, there's no way,
It's way better than a friendly.
given this replaced friendlies,
Yes.
there's no way you get anything near that in the old system.
I agree.
And there's also no way you'd see the scenes of, San Marino winning in a competitive game.
Yeah.
If San Marino were able to do whatever, they're able to beat Liechtenstein in a competitive game. Fine, it's small fry, and we have a little joke about it, and it's Group D, and it's where the minnows are. But that's the point of this.
This is, yeah.
Gibraltar are going to be promoted probably from that and get to play, and they've earned the right to play better teams, and that's how it goes. They just used to get whooped every time before.
So you agree with me now? It's great.
I've always thought it was great.
Well, you never said that.
Sorry, I'm just Googling Stockholm Syndrome.
I'm Googling-
I didn't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah. Stockholm Syndrome is not spelt Vish's stats, by the way.
I would never, ever type that into Google.
Just in case someone's done it.
Well, no, because
Jimmy to the Beasley round for
on
that.
a lot of, when you play club cricket, your stats are logged officially.
cricket, here we
No,
go.
no, hold on. Mine are dreadful.
Right.
Like utterly awful.
I don't believe
I would never do that.
I don't
Stockholm
believe it.
Syndrome, ironically, Sweden actually been very poor in the Nations League. They're doing all right this time around, but they're languishing down in Group C
That's poor for them.
with your likes of Azerbaijan and Estonia.
Yeah, well, they need to get out of it, and perhaps they will. Now,
I think they will, yeah.
Portugal beat Poland 5-1 on Saturday. Cristiano Ronaldo scored twice, including a bicycle kick. He can still get up there.
Yeah.
It is impressive, let's be honest.
He was. Did you see how he landed?
Yes.
On his feet, was it?
What a goal!
So what were you worried about?
Because he had a lot of times in like other sports where people end up playing later, they basically try and like row back on doing like expansive things. So
Yeah.
good example is in basketball, people stop dunking because landing is quite hard on your knees,
Yeah.
and you can't do it for it's going to have a debilitating effect the later you dunk in your career. And this was very much like because he used to throw himself into other kicks, and this one was very much like, this makes sense. And as soon as he makes contact, his arms go out to like cushion his fall.
Did you feel like he's not far away from, if he tries an overhead kick, people say he's had a fall?
Grandad's had an overhead kick.
What age does it become I've fallen over to I've had a fall?
Well, in footballing terms, he can't be far off it. No. But he has broken a record. He now has the most wins in international football history, surpassing Sergio Ramos.
Can you play too much international football as an individual? I think that's excessive.
I didn't think you could until I heard that.
Not as good as Messi, though, is he? And that's really the only thing he cares about.
Yeah.
Well, does he still care? Yeah, he does, let's be honest. Let's be honest.
I said this at the time, and I'll say it again now in the form of a reminder. He has absolutely 100% watched the World Cup final in 2022.
Yeah.
What do you think given the nature of the World Cup final that we saw, given that Lionel Messi lifted the trophy, how much would you have loved to have been there with him when he started to watch that happening? Because he definitely would have watched it.
Well, I think killing Mbappe was his only hope.
Yeah, he was.
And I think he would have probably been watching it going, that's it, son, you do him.
Yeah,
go on.
Yeah.
And
I don't think he's ever forgiven Kolo Muani for missing that shot in the last minute.
No. I think he would have been absolutely raging.
Yeah.
And really, so all the win all the awards you want, break all the records you want, but that's the real talk.
Well, speaking of angry men, we're just going to finish on this. The aforementioned Sergio Ramos has reportedly been offering his services repeatedly to Real Madrid this week in light of their injury crisis, but apparently they're not interested.
Yeah, so Dave Cartledge on OTC last week said, look, it's funny, but it's not happening.
Yeah.
Because Adam Militao got another ACL, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
He's done both knees. Yeah, it's really sad. Yeah.
Very, very sad.
And they're really short of centre-backs. But I mean, I'd love to see it. We all would. Just imagine, I have a little sweepstake on the minute that Sergio Ramos gets beaten for pace and has to pull someone down to the ground.
Yeah, they're a bit like, we're better off playing with 10 men because with him it would soon be 10 men.
Anyway, exactly.
Yeah. And we don't have to pay for that.
There's a lot of paperwork afterwards. Yeah,
we might as well just train with 10 men because at least we know we set our stall out. Although he probably wouldn't nod in a goal at some point. So maybe Real Madrid loosen up a bit and let the great man return.
I'm just conscious that some people who listen to this show would have also listened to OTC and would have said how David actually knows what he's talking about, so it's not happening.
Cheers for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.